session. Okay, so why don't we get started? Vanessa, do you want to share yours first, and then we'll go to Geeta and then to Cynthia. So you should be able to share your screen. It's coming up. There you go. Okay. So Vanessa, walk us through your draw. Just remember, it's weird to think about it.
Hello?
Even though we laid out the process for everybody, what we will implement in the system, right? So what will be the scope of PHN systems?
I think if you are speaking, Bonisa, you are on mute.
Yeah, we can't see you. I hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can see the picture also here, which you
Right, right.
created. Yeah.
Yeah, but we cannot hear.
Oh my God, I didn't know I was mute.
There you go. You have to repeat your speech now, Vanessa.
I was talking for nothing.
That's okay.
Okay.
You rehearsed it. Think of it this way. You got it rehearsal. Now let's do the prime time.
Okay, I hope I'm not. But so the thing is, I had like the first user was is the physician. So its activity is to fill out the form for BCMH services, and I was trying to have like some task it was assigned so it can do. Like I put review the form, review the medical record, assigning the required program.
Okay. So
So to
Vanessa,
be honest, I'm not done, to be honest.
okay, Vanessa, a question for you.
Yes.
You put the physician. Are those the physician that normally families goes to see the as a pediatrician for their kids?
No.
So which are those physicians? The one which is contracted by the county that provides the services?
Maybe the physician is not is a doctor, right?
Right, but who are they? So for example, let's say I'm a small kid and along with my family, I'm going to see my normal physician or pediatrician, right?
Mm.
That pediatrician is what you kind of indicated here, right? When I see the fill the form for BCMH services for patient,
Mm-hmm.
Here's my question. Are they going to access the system?
Yes, probably.
No, remember, it's in the registration process when we talked about it, is they will fill the form,
Mm-hmm.
which will be a paper form, and then they will give it to, along with the nurse's contact to the family, and then family will call in. So the physicians will never access the system if they are my normal physicians, right? So think about it when you're creating a story map, you're to create from the system's point of view. Who is accessing system? If this physician never access the systems, they should not be in the story map. They will be in the business process because some of the activities that happens in the business process, it's going to happen outside the context of the system.
I also mentioned from that diagram, which we discussed before. So I also mentioned those physicians.
Right. So it's, remember, it's when you look back the stakeholder map that I kind of drew it, right, for corporate customers, I didn't put anything else that the corporate customer is not going to do in my system. The only thing which I put in the system, like order item or a check order, it's the actual things that they will do in the system. So in here, the physician is not going to log in into the system to the BC machine. Now, if the physician is the physician who is kind of providing the county the services for those patient encounters, that's the different thing that we are talking. But remember, we talked about build a registration flow. So in registration, those physicians doesn't play a role,
That's true.
right? So I want you to think about that. Do you have anything else for any other users? So most likely the activities that you recorded for the physician is not going to be in there. So
So
now let's look at the nurse.
Yeah, I did PHN nurse. So the role was to do the initial assessment. So this is the activity. So I bring up some of the tasks she can do, like set up time for initial assessment. Another task was visit patient assessment process, check eligibility for BCMH, sign up patient for BCMH program, and issue the LOA. So I went through to have some stories starting here. So she can set up time for initial assessment by maybe calling patients and check availability.
Okay. So, okay. So this is good. That's a good start, right? So when you say set up time for initial assessment, right? So essentially, when you go back to the process that we have done it, right? So this happens probably from two different ways, right? A patient.
Dilip,
Yeah.
can you just add accept the invite for the Zoom for
I did.
Oliver?
Yeah, he's in there. Okay. So when you set up doing the initial assessment, right? When you say set up time for initial assessment, it's going to come from two ways, right? One is doctor's office, fill the form, give it to the parents. So the parents called up in the system to do that, right?
Yes.
So the nurse is setting. Oliver, can you put yourself in the mute? Because there's two people in the same room so that we are hearing echo. So when you look into the overall registration process, right? So one path is patient calling after the doctor's office gave the form. The second part is they just calling up 1-800 number, and then they are setting the assessment. Now, are they doing anything to do that activities in the patient assessment? So think of this way. What is the main activity? Is the main activity to do the initial assessment, or the main activity is that, hey, I need to register the patient? An assessment is one of the activities that I do it as part of registering patient. Again, I'm not saying right or wrong, right? I'm just asking a question. Where is your mind?
Yeah.
Right? So in this case, looks like you have put the assessment as a separate activity, which is fine. Right? So now when you do that, what are the things they will do in the system? So think it that way. So those are the ones that you should put on the task, right? So checking eligibility for BCMH, right? What does that mean? What activity they will do it in the system to do that?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, the eligibility. I said, okay, maybe if the patient meet the requirement or not. I don't know.
So most likely, right? So when you do the initial assessment, right? So the way I see it is there are two key activities that they will do it as part of the initial assessment, right? One is review whatever the form that they've done it. Now, if the form is electronically, that the nurse has captured that data somewhere, right? Because it may not be in the paper. Then they will probably kind of look at or review that form. The second aspect that they may have it is when they look into it, they need to have ability to store the information about the assessment into the system, right? So remember, like it's one of the key things that nurses do it is record the daily activity, right? So I might just put it as part of the initial assessment that, hey, I'm going to go ahead and update my daily record activity in the system.
Don't pay attention of my note, please. I just want to make a correction later.
Sure.
Again, hang on making the notes yet, right? What I'm talking is I'm talking through the process, right? So
Dilip, you want to pull up that diagram maybe that we all agreed to earlier? Maybe we can stick to that process.
yeah, hang on.
For that, I need to stop sharing.
Yeah.
No, hang
yeah,
on. Keep it for a moment. Let me
Okay.
make sure that I get the version. Did this patient registration? What I need to download it because I can't expand it here.
I really like the thinking part.
So what is, I think the only thing I think you need to focus on, right? When you are going to the actual requirements or stories, right? Think about what activities users are doing within the system. So some of the activities in the business process that happens outside the system, like doctor, like phone call to the nurse or county or for nurse calling to the families, right? So that's not part of the system we are talking. That's something nurse will pick up the phone and call them up and then set up the appointment. But once the nurse goes there and she captures the assessment, she comes back, logs in, and enters the information. That's where the interaction starts for the nurse. Okay. So those are the stories should be focused on how they are interacting with the system. So you need to basically, I guess, extract the information from the process flows and create the stories based on that, the interaction with the systems only. Okay. I think Dilip will pull up the process, so maybe we can talk later.
Give me a second. I think it's just trying to get it into not open on the browser, but open in the Acrobat so that you guys can actually see it. All right. So Vanessa, I'm going to stop yours. Can you stop screen sharing?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead.
Do you want me to share?
Hang on.
Not yet, Oliver. Hold on to your things. Okay. Let's talk about it here.
Oliver, I think it's since you and Cynthia both are in the same room, there might be an echo. So make sure if one is on unmute, the other person stays on the mute. Okay. So can you guys see my screen? Urshula, are you able to see that patient registration process?
Yes, Dilip.
Okay. So think of these things, right? So here is the process that we talked about. Now, first thing you need to identify it is out of all these activities that is kind of put as part of the business process, which one is actually going to be involving the system interaction, right? So let's start with it, right? When a physician fills up the form and give it to parent and guardian, are we doing anything in the system?
No.
Okay, right? So there's nothing in the system. So we keep it outside the system. It should not be in your story map. Let's talk about the patient then, right? When a patient calls a BCMH hotline and set up an appointment, they're never accessing the system. So they're not doing any activity themselves, right? Is somebody else doing activity on their behalf in the system? They are not, right? So that's what we call it is out of band activity, which is not going to happen in the system. Okay. Then is the patient eligible financially? Probably that is also an offline process, right? Because we don't have a room in the system to do that. Now, the next one is set up time for initial assessment. Okay.
Yeah.
So that particular activity, this one, when we talk about this activity, right? So think of it, right? What does nurse do? They do a daily activity, right? They have to plan it out. So this has potential that it could interact with the system, where the nurse records it as part of their daily activity that, hey, on this date, I'm scheduled to go see this patient.
Then you can confirm this activity with the user, and user
Right.
says no, it's not part of daily activity. Then you shouldn't be
Right.
showing any interaction. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm kind of like, it's walking through it, right? I'm going to highlight everything that I think could be potentially in the systems, and then we will go and ask users the clarification around it. Okay. So that you understand what all activity we need to do it for that particular patient thing. Now, visiting the patient, whereas you're doing assessment process, right? So this is where nurse will be going there and sitting and talking with the patient. Anything going to happen in the program? Probably not, right? I'm not going to do anything in the system. Once they finish talking with the patient, right, they are probably going to look into it as, hey, are they eligible for BCMH program or not? If the decision is yes, probably they're going to sign up the patient for this program. And this is where probably I think they are going to go do it in the system, right? Most likely.
Yes.
Logging the information in the system to just identify, hey, this patient, we visited it, but they're not eligible. And then issuing letter of authorization probably from the system itself, right? So I've highlighted. Go
I
ahead.
had a question.
Uh-huh.
So if the nurse check eligibility for BCMH program, even if you're no or yes, she gonna log in, right? When you say sign up patient for BCMH program, that means she log in to sign up the patient.
Okay,
So that's the
here
process we talked, right? So nurse goes at, does an assessment, right? And they may decide, hey, you know what? This person is not eligible for the services. They may have still different diagnosis, but we do not cover that as part of BCMH program. So in that case, they're going to say, hey, you know what? We cannot help you from the BCMH program point of view. We cannot fund or do a treatment, but I will just kind of log in into the system that I visited the patient. This patient is not eligible. That's it, right? So that's the no path. The yes path is, yes, I visited the patient. I did the initial assessment and they are eligible for this, this, and this treatment as part of the BCMH program. Then I'm going to put that into the system and give them a letter of authorization so they can just go and visit the doctor, and then county will pay for those treatment, right? So that's the registration, overall registration process we talked. There are 4 areas that we highlighted that could potentially access the system, right? The one in yellow.
Yes, I got you.
So now we talk with our customer, right? To get more detail is to figure it out whether this is going to be part of my story map or not. Remember, the only thing which you're going to put in the story map is the things that are going to be interacting with the PHN system that we are building it. Everybody with me so far on this page?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Dilip, are you recording it? Just making sure.
I think so. Yeah, it is recording.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So Harshal, question for you now. We talked about registration process and we're trying to understand it is what aspect of the registration process you're envisioning system to capture or utilize to process that particular registration. So there are 4 possible areas that we have identified, and we want to talk with you about that. So when the nurses set up the initial time for the assessment, are you anticipating that system will capture that information that this particular PHN nurse is going to visit patient X on this date for assessment?
So that particular portion, right, Dilip? So that one at that point, the patient information is not in the system. So we anticipate that initial discussion with the patient will not be captured in the system at this point, not as part of daily activity either. The daily activity is all about the interaction with the patient once they are signed up into the system. That's the information is being tracked. We like to track in the system. So anything that happens prior to the sign up of the patient, those activities are system not supposed to track those activities.
Okay. All right. So thank you for that clarification. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify that this particular activity is not going to be using why it's not letting me delete that. Okay. So once they're identified and eligible for program, they will be registering patients. But what about if they are not eligible? We'd initially talked that to log the information in the system, what kind of level of detail that they will be logging into the system about the patient not being eligible?
Right. So I think that information, I think that needs to be a correction over there. It's just a matter of communicating to the families that they are not eligible, but the information will not be logged into the system. Basically, it's a notification to the families that they are not eligible.
Right. So when you look at this, right, I'm doing this into PDF version, but if you're like it's logged into the actual PHN nursing system flow in the smart draw, then you will just change it there. Okay.
Okay.
So this one, then we said that it's not going to happen. So this one we did that. Now, Harshal, one of the other activities that we talked about it is once the patient is signed up, there is a letter of authorization is going to be issued. Is that letter of authorization going to be issued from the system, or it's a process that nurse will register and do it offline to register them?
Right. So that will be issued. Now the sign up process, the way it works, right? The sign up process is so they have the initial form from the doctor, and they went through the financial documents. Now financial documents will not be captured into the system, but the initial form, based on the initial form, that's what nurse will use along with the visit information that she went and visited the patient and evaluated the patient. So the sign-up form will have generally like a patient name, what conditions they have, and why the doctor is referring, and the insurance information, and a bunch of other things. I'm not sure whether you guys had a chance to take a look at the sign-up form, which is a medical application form that is shared. So that's the form will be used to actually sign up the patient information and set up the patient into BCMH system.
But what about like it's once I sign it up?
Right.
Do you anticipate letter of authorization to be generated from the system?
Right. So there is a physician evaluation process after that, right? So physician and nurse will take a look at the information, what is part of the initial assessment as well, and they will issue LOA right after that.
Okay. So the question is, so initially when PHN nurse does the assessment and says that the patient is eligible for PCMH program,
right?
What kind of notification then goes to the physicians or the clinical nurse so that they can evaluate?
So these physicians are part of the county, and so these physicians will take a look at it along with the nurse, and they will say, "Yep, this patient meets the criteria for the BCMH program, whether it's a diagnostics or treatment or the basically one of those things." So
Right, but
and
is that part captured in the system? Like, so for example, right?
the evaluation happens outside, but they will take a look at the information that is being captured into the system.
Okay. And once they identified that, yes, the patient meets it,
Right.
who generates the letter of authorization? PHN nurse, which
System.
registered?
Yeah. But generally PHN nurse, they will
Okay.
coordinate they are the kind of like a front facing with the patient.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Herschel, for helping us getting an insight in terms of what all will interact with the system. Is there anything else as part of the registration process that you anticipate that system should be doing it?
No, I think everything else is looks good from that standpoint here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So class, so now, like it's when you think about it, right? Having this conversation now helps me building my story map. All it just says there is going to be only 2 stories that is going to be happening, right? One is the signing up the patient, and the second one is issuing letter of authorization as part of the assessment.
This is what, only 2 stories?
Only 2 activities.
Okay, 2 activities. Okay.
I mean, 2 tasks, right? So when I look at the hierarchy.
And what will be the activity then?
So the activities will, hang on, where is my, there, right? So when I look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna try to go back to this one, right? So remember we said that there's gonna be 4 level on the story map, right?
Yeah. Have user.
Right, so we did the users, right? The nurse. The
Mm-hmm.
activity we just say said, hey, I'm gonna do an initial registration of the patient, right? Because that's the activity that the flow diagram that we reviewed. This is the registration process, right? Are you guys with me so far?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Under that, I'm gonna do 2 tasks. One is sign up the patient. Second one is issue the LOA. Right?
Okay.
Then underneath that, then I will have now stories. Well, so what are the different ways for sign upping the patient? What are the different stories, right? As Herschel pointed out, there are a lot of information that is put in the form, right? And those things could be broken down into different stories depending on what are the required field, what is the minimum, and then how I update it, right? In the issuing LOA, there could be multiple stories. There could be, hey, I'm gonna like it's issue LOA by just doing actual printout of the system, right? So the nurse just goes and generates the printout and then physically mails that letter to the patient. Or the other aspect is they generate the LOA into PDF format and then attach that and send it an email to the patient, right? So you could have potentially those 2 stories under LOA. You guys with me?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
given that context, let's talk through it like it's then, let's continue sharing the stories. What do you have? Any question of how do I go about mapping the stories from the business process into my story map? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. So Vanessa, now let's go back to your screen and just let's talk through it, the changes that potentially you will make into it.
I already started making the change. Okay.
Okay. What
I
about
think
you,
she needs
Geeta?
to create
Oh,
a new one.
I have
Yeah.
to create new one too. Sorry, but mine
Are
is,
you
I don't know
there?
where it is gone.
Can you see my screen? I'm trying. When you were talking, I was trying to make some correction.
I was
So
typing
when
on
it's
the paper. I was writing on the paper. So
so
here,
it's not that simple, Vanessa. Okay, let me tell you one thing here.
Okay.
So as an analyst, right, you need to analyze the now you need to blow up that box, that sign up patient.
Okay.
What does it mean? And then come up with the stories that goes along with with that activity or task.
Okay.
Um, so what would be your next step if you want to come up with story for that particular activity? What would be your thought process here? Where would you look?
You're talking about sign up patient?
Yeah, just that one box, right? Sign up.
Yes.
So as an analyst, I mean, what else you would look at?
Um.
Anybody else has any thoughts?
mm,
first nurses maybe log in into their own system. I mean their system in they everybody has their own different ID or password, something like that. Maybe
See,
first
we
they
are
will
not talking
start.
about login process,
Oh
right?
yeah,
We are
sign in on.
talking about the sign up, patient sign up. What
Okay.
really? So I just explain you guys the process, right? What really happens when we say sign up.
Maybe provide the patient information, name, address, and everything.
So where would you look for that? I already mentioned something when we were talking. I don't know whether you guys captured or not. Where that information is.
On the patient form.
Okay, and
Yeah,
where would you find that form?
Patient medical record.
Right. So patient medical record. So it's a medical application form. So I like you guys to go and review that form first before you come or write any story, because there is a lot of things over there, and that, as Dilip said, it potentially you can have 10 stories recreated just from based on the form capture, because that's the sign up, right? That's what it means. Capture all the information, whatever is there on the form, and it needs to go in the system. So you can potentially break down the form into multiple stories. I don't know whether anybody has seen that form. It's already provided to you. I don't know
I
whether
have
you guys
seen
look.
that. That was, I think, for the consent signature also at the end uh, from their families and all the information
So
related to.
consent is a different one, right?
Oh,
So that's a
okay.
different form. There are a bunch of forms in there.
MAF.
I like you guys to find out what is a initial patient form, and take a look at that. Spend maybe like 5 minutes or 10 minutes on that. Because as a business analyst, you need to be able to review all the information that is given to you. If you don't review that, you're probably not going to be able to get a picture from the users. And users, if you ask the same question multiple times to the users will start avoiding you. That's what happens in the real life. So you need to do the homework, basically, or prepare, basically. And then this reviewing information, whatever user provides you, that's the important part of the preparation. So take a look at it, maybe 5-10 minutes, and let's come back and see what stories you guys will have afterwards.
So it's 11:41. Do you want to let's go till 11:50?
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
Right. Let's go through 11:50. Update here that one of the other thing which I would also recommend, Vanessa, and I'm pretty sure everybody else this is going to be applicable for you too, is I would color the different layers differently.
Oh
Remember,
yeah.
like it's how I did that. If you do everything gray, I'm not clear what is activity versus what is the task versus what is the story.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, you're
you see
right.
there is a color option at the top. Let's
Mm-hmm.
use that. So it's a much more easier for everybody to remember.
Yeah.
Because remember,
Bec-
you're going to share this just like what you shared with us.
Sorry.
You're going to share it in a real life with your team members.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is no clarity on it in terms of what it is, people are going to get more confused. And at some point, they're not going to be paying attention what you're trying to tell it because it's so confusing for them. Okay.
So Dilip, in Drive, where I have to create those like these diagrams in Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google
Just
Slides.
whatever you want to create it in your local, right? So you can share it. What I was just saying it is, but
Okay,
you can
I
use
was
Google Docs to
yeah.
create it.
Mm.
So you don't have to have a software installed on your machine. You can just go into the browser and simply do that from.
No, I only typed the matter. I did not find that like that rectangle signs or something. That's what I was asking.
Oh, you just go to Google Docs and you just say, I want to create a new document. Okay. And then when you go try to create a new document, it gives you option. You want to do a Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides,
Mm-hmm.
or Google Forms. Use Google Slides.
Google Slides. Okay.
And then that will enable you to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to pause the recording. Okay. So think of this way, right? So you had the medical information, medical form, right?
Mm-hmm.
At a high level, you think about it as this is one grouping, right? It's the
Mm-hmm.
information about the patient itself.
Hmm.
Then there is a health insurance information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a dental insurance information. You have a vision insurance information,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you can actually, like it's kind of created, hey, register patient is my activity, right? Underneath
Mm-hmm.
that, I can say, hey, it's a login and capture demographics related information, right? So here is like user ID and password biometrics. You can just do it, enter the first sets of information, right? So this is known as demographics, okay? Then you can just get, hey, I have a sets of medical information, and then I have a sets of insurance information. So if you can see, it's health insurance, dental, vision. So you can break it down your stories like this when you do it. Okay? And a lot of these things gives you an understanding is, hey, how they are like, it's kind of organizing for this medical application form, right? What is the front page of information? What is the back, which is the second page, right? So this is the back. If you notice it, they're providing some health services that they are like, it's kind of recording it. So you can put that information in there. Not necessarily all of that is required at the registration. Okay. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how you take the information and start breaking into it, right? So registering a patient, to me, it's a multiple task. And each one of the tasks contains sub additional stories for the information. And as Herschel pointed out, you have to discuss with the business users to identify the business rules as, hey, do I need all of this information? Or what if they have only the health insurance and they don't have dental or vision insurance? What happens then? What is the minimum mandatory information? Those kind of things, it's going to be there. Okay. Any questions? You guys good so far? Silence. Yes, no?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how you create the story map. Now, we started talking about the individual stories, right? So I'll switch back to the custom creation, right? when you put the story, right, you have a card, which is, this is what the card is, right? If you look at it, it's very short and succinct. Then you identify what are the details behind that story. So that's when you start having a conversation as with your business users, right? So let's play the same role. Let's have Harshal as our business users and us as the business analyst who is trying to capture the information, right? So the first story is a login, right? As a corporate customer, you're going to log in, right? So you need to have a conversation. So I'll start the conversation, right? And then as I know it, I'll start capturing the information. So Harshal, thank you for spending time today with us. We want to like it's hash out specific detail about what it means for our customers to log in into the site using user ID and a password. Okay. So you mentioned that there is one of the ways that a customer can log in into the system is by using their ID and a password. However, is there any specific business rule in terms of how many attempts they have it before system locks them up, or do they get infinite amount of tries to get into the user ID and the password?
Yeah, typically, I mean, we like to restrict the access, right? So if somebody is trying to hack it and they can go infinite number, but we like to lock down the account if it's 3 attempts, 3 failure attempts
Okay.
For them. Three consecutive failures. Yep. Successive attempts.
Okay. Do you enforce certain rules around the passwords or user IDs in terms of what all things user ID can or cannot have it?
Yeah, so generally that would be the strict sticking to our corporate password policies. So whatever that policy is, I believe it's a 10-digit password with some characters, some special characters, at least one special character, one uppercase, and one number in the password.
Now, is there a specific special characters as a corporate that you have limited people to take it, or is there a special characters that you do not allow?
Yeah, the % sign shouldn't be allowed, as well as some of the. Let me think it here. So yeah, % sign is definitely not allowed, and the quotes and double quotes that shouldn't be allowed.
Okay. What about the user ID? Is there a user ID specifically ruled it through the first name, last name, or is that something that you generate from the system and give it to them? How does that work? Or is there a corporate
I think
email
system
address
should
that
be able
they
to
use?
generate it. System should be able to generate it. I mean, but when they are logging in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that rule mainly is applicable for setting up a new user account. But it will needs to be required here, obviously, both user ID and password.
Okay.
Otherwise, they should see a message saying, please enter valid information, or similar message.
Okay. Any other like it's exception rules that we have to worry about it when you're logging into the system?
Not that I can think of right now, but that's obviously that can be added later on. So
What happens if I forget my password? Is there any indication on the screen that they should be able to do that?
so on the screen, there should be something that will allow them to take to the password reset functionality. Now that password reset functionality probably is we can discuss in a different story.
Okay.
But that's something that should be a link on this page.
All right.
Where yeah.
Okay. Okay. So anything else that we need to worry about it when we talk about from the system point of view?
Not this one, but it would be helpful if you can have a mock-up screen.
Okay.
Basically, that so that we can ask the team members and so forth.
Okay. So let's draw then mock-up screen, like it's so that we can understand it. So one of the tools that we're going to use it for the mock-up screen is essentially a frame box. This is a freeware version for class. You guys can get it. Okay, so let's just drag and drop and do the mock-up screen, right? So we can do it something like, and I'm gonna go ahead and so while we are talking, if a user ends up entering incorrect password, what exactly the system should display in terms of messages?
Your login credential failed type of error message. I
Yes.
mean, you can come up with the exact wording, but they should get some notification that user ID or password is incorrect. Generic message.
There is no undo button. We can put a link to the URL. So Harshal, like it's, as we talked about the screen layout. So here is kind of like it's rough screen layout. Let me know if this is meets what you're envisioning it for the system to do that. So when a customer comes in from our story, right? So we're gonna go ahead and put the user ID and the password. This will be the normal screen. They will see it where they will have ability to put the user ID and password and submit it. And from here, if they forgot it, then they will have a ability to click reset functionality. If they enter invalid password, it's going to display the same message again with this thing. It will be displayed as a key. It's saying that, hey, this is invalid user ID and password. Please try again. If they exceed the three attempts, then they will get information like this. Does this sound right of what you're envisioning it?
Yes, the only thing is for marking the user ID and password as required. So there needs to be some visual on the screen, like a star or asterisk be right behind the every field.
Like this?
So that way, yeah, something like that. Yep. So that way they will know right away if this information is required. And so then it will force them to enter it.
Now, from a security point of view, do you want it to display the business rules that you have put for the password, or it will be enforced at the time of creation and you expect your customers to remember that password so that people can't hack into your system using those credentials?
That's correct. So they need to be enforced at the time of the creation,
Okay.
not on the screen. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is kind of look like your actual screen when the customer sees it. Obviously, we'll have whatever the standard corporate background,
right,
to be consistent with all the other application, and then corporate logos here.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's very close to what we expect. So.
Okay. So I'm gonna try to find that there is a way to.
You can just take a screenshot and
okay,
put it out.
Let me do that then. So I'm gonna do a snipping tool. Okay. So as you guys can see it, like we talked with Herschel, we took one specific story and then started providing the detail, what business rules will be, what exception will be. We did capture the screen shares for those. So you can just go ahead and then kind of share it that. Then we'll see it tomorrow. Like it's how you can put all of those information together in the tool. But now if you give your development team a screen shots that you created at the mock-up screens, this particular detail and understanding of where the story fits in, right? So this story fits in here, right? So this is the story that we implemented. So can the development team then go ahead and able to write all those details and build a system what they needed to build it? Okay. Any questions?
No.
Not now. Okay, I think you guys will have a lot of homework to finish up. And I'm sure you guys will come up with the questions at that point as well.
Okay.
So that, what was that site frame?
Frame box.
Frame
Yeah,
box. Yeah.
we can put it in chat window.
Okay.
So, Dilip, you want to talk about these controls just for, or are you guys familiar with that? Different types of things that can be on the screen.
Frame box.
Okay.
So in our daily activity, like as a BA, we have to use this tool over there.
So
Definitely.
you will use
Oh,
some
oh.
sort of tools,
Some sort
right?
of tool.
Some sort
Yeah.
of framing tools. This isn't free openware. You can use, like, it's a lot of corporations like JP Morgan, that we can use it, Figma, as well as we can use it, something known as a lucid boards, as to create this frames and create the process diagram as well as this screen layout.
Yeah, we generally the folks use Microsoft Visio as well. That's very popular in the companies.
So I have question not from this for Harshal. Harshal, Rati, you remember Rati, right? She told me that she got the interview like for some theoretical part, and she got mock-up interview. Is this one she was talking about? Mock-up thing?
Mock-up interview.
I mean, she joined the job. After 1 week, they gave her mock-up. That time I did not understand anything what she's talking about. Is this one?
No,
Mock-up
no.
screens, probably they said she might have the mock-up screen creation portion.
Okay. So the conversation I had with her, Geeta, was not necessarily the mock-up in the sense of this. What she was kind of told it, like, it's
Kind of a role play.
role
Yeah.
play,
Oh,
just
okay.
build a user story, a
Okay.
mock-up user story based on the scenario that they gave it, to have her create the entire story map and
Okay.
do this kind of screen mock-up and then flush it out the detail for 1 or 2 stories. So that's what she had to go through it.
Okay.
Okay. So when you look into your framing tools, you're going to have things like the box, which essentially allows you to create the area. You have a drag and drop type of things, which is your text box, the text header, right? So here I could have used text header instead of text box. Then you have a link, right? So essentially allows you, Harshal talked about, hey, click here to reset it. You can put a link that allows you to go to somewhere else. The button is obviously, like, I put the submit, so it gives an indication that, hey, after I enter this information, there needs to be a button. Then there is obviously a text input that we used it, the text area. Then there is a radio button, which is like, it's kind of, if I have multiple things, and from there, it's I'm allowed to select only one, then typically use radio button. You can use checkbox if there are more than one selection is permitted on a list. You can also do a drop down. Remember how, if you have like state, and there is 50 states, so you can create a drop down where they can just select it only from one of those 50. Then you can also add an image. There are some other controls also that you kind of do it on the edit mode, and then it just shows you how you can do that, all those things. Okay.
So if you have never seen this before, this type of controls, I would just Google it and basically just get familiar with what are the different HTML controls and so forth. And that's what you need to get familiar with it, which helps you design the screens for the users.
Yeah.
Okay. There is no programming logic behind these screens, but it helps user understand what you are trying to build in the system. Now, actual system might look a little bit different, but this is more like a concept type of thing.
Yeah. So there are multiple concepts when you're doing a wireframing that you need to be aware of it, right? What we kind of just drew it's a low fidelity wireframe. That means it is kind of used it to have the conversation, have the directional aspects of what it needs to look like. A lot of times your development team has a UI designers which actually take this mock-up screens and then put into the tools such as the Figma that I was mentioning it, which is a higher end of wireframing tool, which essentially allows you to generate the clickable wireframes. So it can allow your application team to actually build the look and feel of entire screens where somebody can click through it, but without functionality in the background. Right. So it'll allow me, hey, I enter my wrong user ID password, and when I click on submit, it will automatically take me to this screen with this message. And then I can simulate 3 times logged in, and it'll go ahead and display the screen without putting any business logic in the system. Okay, so just be aware when they talk about wireframe, there are multiple levels. What you are expected as an analyst is to get the initial level of wireframe created. Okay. Any questions?
No.
No.
All right. So that talks about how you take a requirement or a concept that the user is talking and start drilling it down on all the details, right? So as you can say, it is, I kind of took it one page or start having a conversation with my users, building the context diagram, building the story map, and then taking it and further defining and detailing it. So now this becomes a real concrete story that somebody in the development team can go ahead and implement. Okay. And this business rules also help me to build my test cases that, hey, what are the different test cases I need to build it in order to do this?
Test cases. Okay. That is the other part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember, like it's if somebody gives you the screen and just says test it if it's working or not.
Right.
What are the things you're going to do it? Remember what I talked about is your requirement complete, correct, and consistent? And the fourth part is testable, right? So when I look at it, do you have all the information you needed in order to create a login functionality? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
along with the screen mockups, I think
Right.
it
So
makes
it's
it complete.
completed,
Yeah.
right? And then this description, what they talk about is consistent because I'm also giving a screen mockup. Is my screen mockup consistent with the business rules that they identified? Answer is yes, right? Do I have enough detail that I can go ahead and test this thing now? Does it require my user ID and a password? Yes. Does it provide access to the password reset functionality? Yes. Is the account locked if it more than 3 failure happens? Yes, I have a screen which talks about that. And then when they implement it, you can validate it as, hey, what if somebody tries to enter a password which doesn't meet this criteria? Is my login attempt fails? Okay, and when that attempt fails, does it give this kind of messages? Okay, so you fulfill all those conditions to say, is it now complete?
Okay.
Okay. Any questions so far?
Okay.
All right, so I'm
Yeah,
going to turn.
so are we going to use the frameworks for our homework or not? I don't
Yes,
know.
Yes.
yes, you can just go to framebox.org and that's all you need to go. It doesn't require account or anything.
Yeah, then we will use the PHM P.
Sign up.
Yeah, so hang on. Let me turn on to Harshal. Harshal, so let's talk about the next step and what they need to do it between now and tomorrow morning.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like them to complete the story map. That's obviously important for the assessment, right? I like to see that you guys, everybody creates their own, and it doesn't have to be same. Okay, everybody thinks differently, so your story map will look a little bit different. And make sure you complete it.
So for PHN nurses only, right?
Well,
Yeah.
that's the only interaction for that
Yeah,
process,
for
right?
okay, sign up.
Yeah. So make sure you think it through based on your process. You can finish it up, the story map, and then you break down the stories, create the stories basically, right? At the end, and pick one story, okay, and create end to end, including the screen and the requirements. So think it through how you can. Let's say you pick the insurance module or you pick the demographics module, then pick one story and come up with think about the rules, and then we will talk tomorrow as well. Okay. So, and I'm hoping everybody will pick different so that we can discuss it.
I mean,
Different modules, different stories.
Harshal, anything else? I've captured those
Okay.
notes up here.
Yeah, pick one story, create it. So do you want to assign the stories, Dilip? I think otherwise everybody will pick the same, I'm afraid.
Okay, so in
Who wants to take the demographics?
me.
How about we give you insurance one?
Okay.
Okay, we'll get you insurance one.
insurance once goes to Geeta.
Yeah.
So I should not say yes to me first.
Demographic. Can I give it to Vanessa?
Yeah. Okay. What's
Letter
the,
of authorization.
not the LOA, Dilip. The same form has different one, so we can stick
Okay.
to the same form. There is a different section in the form if you have
The
it open.
insurance, the medical information is in there. Right, so who
Right.
gets the medical information?
Yeah, that something we can give to Cynthia. And the last one, there is one more, which goes to Oliver.
And then services provided.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So if I go back here, right? So let me just case. So this is the demographic.
Right.
This is the insurance information.
Yep.
Okay. This is the, what is it we talked about? This the service provider, right?
So give service provider to
Yeah, I
Cynthia,
was kind of like, so where is my screen disappeared?
and services to Oliver, maybe.
Yeah. So you said Herschel service provider, this particular screen. So
To
26
Cynthia.
through 36 to Cynthia.
Yeah.
And, so this thing to
No, that's a services provided, Dilip. That's a different. So that one is
Selling.
fine with the Oliver.
Okay. So this is good,
Instead of
right?
medical information, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking is medical information is this, who is my physician, what is primary, secondary diagnosis.
Okay, that's what you are calling. Okay.
That's what
so,
I'm calling it.
So make sure, Cynthia, you understand what you are getting here.
Right, so Cynthia, you're getting the row 26 through 36.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And Oliver, you're getting this, the section 37 all the way through the 42.
Yeah.
So that's section 47?
Yes, section 37. So the
37.
ones that it's highlighted on the screen is what you're doing it.
Okay, so you guys are creating the detailed story with the business rules and the screen mockups that needs to include the screen mockup as well. Okay.
Yeah, and
so-
I want story map to be done by everybody.
Yeah.
So you
that's
come
right.
up with your own story map. I'm going to put this thing into chat for everyone. This is what you expected to do it. Okay.
And we'll review first thing in the morning and correct the things.
Now, don't forget to put your process diagram, right? So I will just also say update process diagram.
Right.
Because a lot of you still have some updates that you need to do it. So 3 pieces of information for the homework.
Okay. Did you put in the chat? Okay.
Yeah, I did. All of them is
Okay.
in the chat.
So we have to do we have to update our diagram for processing. Then
Right.
Yes.
Correct the diagram.
story
Yeah.
map
Right.
for
Based on our
PAP.
discussion today, right?
Uh-huh,
So make sure
Finish
you
your
correct the
process
diagram.
diagram in Smart Draw.
uh-huh. Then the last one is we use the frameworks to do the last part of the assignment.
Yes. Framebox.org tool. Yep.
Right.
Okay.
And I did post that also in the framebox.org and link into the chat. So
Make
if you
sure
go into
you
chat,
save the URL. Yeah.
Okay.
And are we?
we'll review the stories first thing in the morning. So have that ready. And since everybody has a different module, we will review each of you. Or different stories, I guess.
And I'll upload all of the things that I did for the custom creation up in the SharePoint here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
On the
In
Google
Google
Share,
Docs.
so you can just see it, everything from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So you're gonna put in the BCMH student folder, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
they
So
have.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go ahead and put into this one, the
Yep.
BA Bootcamp
Right.
folder,
Right.
right? So I'll just put it everything up here.
Okay.
So you can see it.
All right. Okay. Any other question, I guess?
So Harshal, the key question.
So from 37 to the 42,
Yeah.
am I
Yeah.
going to create the login and user ID and the password as this diagram?
No, you need to create a screen and stories for that
Okay.
particular section.
Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody working from home, anybody planning to be in the training center tomorrow?
Not me.
Oh,
Working from home. Yeah.
Okay. If nobody will be there, there will be online then. Yep.
Yep. Okay, so we'll be online, try to be online by 8:45.
Yeah.
So that we can proceed it.
Yep. Yeah, I think the review itself will take them by in an hour. So we
Yep.
have other things to cover as well. Yep. So if you can make it on time, I think it would be great.
Okay.
Right?
can you post back the video so that you can watch it back again?
Yes, we'll post it, Oliver. And I think it probably by 3 o'clock, we should have the videos ready and we'll post it out.
Okay. So my part is just doing the mapping, right?
No, you still have to finish the process.
The process, okay.
You have to do the story map
The story map, okay.
and then that section.
Okay,
So
the
there are
story.
3 things, okay? It's pasted in the chat window. Make sure you save it as well. All right, any other question? If not, then we can break here today.
Okay.
Right? We'll see everybody tomorrow. I'm going to stop the recording.